I can see you. If you find that you've got a lot of background noise where you are, we ask that you kindly mute your device so that it's not distracting for anyone else who will be joining us. I know that some people can't actually be with us because of the time difference today, but they will be with us in consciousness, and we'll be recording the workshop, so you'll be able to watch it again afterwards. Please feel free to interrupt me as I go through my session, especially if you want to make any comments or ask any questions or share any thoughts, because I don't want what I share with you just to be words for you. Is there anything practical that I need to know from either of you? No?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll divide this session by me talking about the thunder of silence, sharing from the thunder of silence first of all, and then Aaron will be discussing his session. So I'll introduce myself, and then we'll go straight into it. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Heather. I host the London Infinite Way group. I've been sharing and studying the teachings of the 20th century mystic Joel Goldsmith for well over 25 years now, and I host spiritual talks and events in London and in California. So I think that's enough about me. We've chosen for the topic of today's workshop, The Thunder of Silence, which is the title of a book that Joel Goldsmith wrote. And in this book, he explains the difference between divine mind, i.e. pure awareness, and the human mind, i.e. thoughts. And I'm going to break this up into 3 parts in my time with you today. We'll look at why thoughts are an illusion. We'll look at the purpose of mind and what the function of mind is. And we'll look at how to relax in mind and see that harmony appear in our lives. But before I do, I'd like us to have a very brief meditation, if we may, please. Both of you know how to meditate, so just be still with me for a moment in any way that has meaning for you. If you'd like to close your eyes, you're welcome to, but you don't have to. Okay, let's be still together then. Thank you. If you closed your eyes, I invite you to open them now. Now, we've shared in previous workshops the importance of resting in awareness and also the illusion of the world that the material senses presents to us. But now I feel it's important for us to take that a step further and look at why the world of the 5 senses is a non-reality, and why pure awareness, why consciousness is the true reality. And to do that, as I said, we'll look at the difference between divine mind and human mind as explained in The Thunder of Silence. And rather than looking at the whole book, I've chosen just to study chapters 5 and then draw a little bit on chapter 6. And chapter 5 is called Transcending Mind, and chapter 6 is entitled Unconditioned Mind. So we know that the only reality that exists is just pure consciousness, spirit, awareness. Joel uses these words interchangeably. It's the only thing that actually is. And everything else is an illusion. And what I mean by that is everything that we experience through the five senses isn't the way that it appears to be. And Joel tells us in this chapter 5 that the world appearing to us through the five senses seems to be fragmented into three different states of consciousness, which he describes as the material state of consciousness, the mental state of consciousness, and the spiritual. But I want to be very clear here. There aren't three different states of consciousness. There's just pure consciousness, pure awareness. But it appears to us through the senses to be material, mental, and spiritual. And I like to think of it like this. Pure consciousness is the only reality. And when we are aware of that invisible part of ourselves, we know that that's the substance and essence of everything that's appearing to us in the human mind. But there appears to our senses, this is the way I like to think of it, there appears to our senses to be a kind of patina covering that awareness, just like a mirage. And the substance of that mirage is human mind, it's thought. So everything that appears to us through the senses is mental images in thought, with no absolute reality to them. And Joel tells us, this is so fundamental to the teaching of the infinite way, and I'm going to just read this quote from chapter 5. Joel tells us, "We never live in a material world. Consciousness is always the substance and essence of our world. There is only spirit. There's only consciousness. Consciousness is all that there is. It's the essence and substance of everything. But that consciousness appears to us in an infinity of forms." And Joel cites the example in this chapter 5 of mind appearing to us as hair, skin, blood, flesh. It's all mind appearing to us as the things that we believe we're experiencing. So because it's all mind, that means focusing on good thoughts or positive vibrations will produce good experiences, and vice versa. And I have a beautiful quote from Ramana Maharshi, which demonstrates the non-reality of thought and ipso facto the whole human experience. And I'll read it to you now. He says, it's so profound this, he says, "Don't believe your thoughts. I am the body is a thought. I am the mind is a thought. I am the doer is a thought. Worry is only a thought. Fear is only a thought. Death is only a thought. Death is only a thought." That's so profound, isn't it? And the discipline of the infinite way is not to be drawn into believing thoughts. Thoughts will be there because they're karmic, but we don't invest in them. We don't believe in them. And when we stop believing thoughts, we realize that in and of themselves, they don't actually have any power. The only power, the only creator is consciousness, pure awareness. Now, I want to make an important distinction here, and it was one that set Joel apart from the New Thought movement that was so prevalent at the time when he was practicing. And he actually broke away from Christian Science and the New Thought movement because he realized that we don't demonstrate truth. We don't demonstrate healing. And I know that sounds pedantic, but it's such an important distinction. And I remember saying to my closest infinite way friend years ago, why can't I demonstrate miraculous healings. And my friend caught me up short and said to me, Heather, we don't demonstrate truth. That's an impossibility. And the mystic Lillian de Walters captures this so beautifully in her book, Loving Your Problems. The reason we don't demonstrate truth is because there's actually nothing to heal. You can't heal something or someone who's been hypnotized by their thoughts. You can't heal a situation that doesn't actually exist. But what we can do is rest back in our own awareness and let that one perfect, pure consciousness, that perfect vibration flow out through us, and that in itself dissolves the discordant mental images. So what's the purpose of mind then? What's it for if it's not for right thinking? Well, Joel tells us that in this chapter that the purpose of mind is to be an instrument. It's to be an avenue of awareness. It's not to be an instrument for right thinking. And I'm going to read you a quote from the lovely, beautiful Robert Adams, who was a Western mystic. And he captures this so beautifully. I'll read it to you. He says, when you begin to realize that your mind does not really exist, and he's referring to the human mind, then the life you've been following becomes invalid. It just dissipates, as if you awoke from a dream. So in the spiritual sense, the mind isn't a creative faculty. It doesn't create good and bad. It's just an avenue of awareness. And Joel tells us, again, I'm going to quote from this chapter, the whole secret, i.e. the whole secret of the infinite way, lies in making the transition from a thinking, plotting, scheming, planning mind to a mind resting in a state of awareness through which divine ideas can flow. So as you can see, that's so different to the New Thought way of approaching healings. And from that, we realize that the mind, the human mind, the thoughts that we're experiencing aren't actually power. And as I was contemplating this workshop, an example of this came to me, being an example of Mooji, the Western mystic Mooji. Now, a few years ago, Mooji experienced excruciating stomach pains. And this is a man who radiates profound love. To be with him is just it's amazing. But here he was experiencing intense pain. But Mooji realized that what we believe we're experiencing is this karmic play of human existence, and our function isn't to heal the picture. Because just as we've shared, what we experience through the five senses is an illusion. Our job instead is to rest back in awareness. And the more that we do that, the more that we're fully present, resting in that pure vibration, the quicker the discordant, hypnotic, illusionary pictures will dissipate and dissolve out of our experience. Because there is no discord in the here and now. So to recap, first of all, we've said that matter is only a material state of consciousness, has no absolute reality to it. It's just mental images and thought, mind appearing to us in an infinity of forms. And when we rise above mind and thoughts to an awareness of the activity of consciousness that we are, that leads us to the final facet of this chapter. And that is, how do we put all of this into practice? How do we learn to rest back and relax in mind? How do we surrender to the mind that we really are? And as I was rereading these 2 chapters, I read a sentence that made me smile. I'll read it to you now. Joel says, when the mind is open to receive the divine impulse, harmonious and perfect form flows out from it. And I remember when I was new to the Infinite Way, reading Joel's books and thinking, oh, wow, this is all absolutely fabulous. I want it. How do I do it? But the divine impulse, what does that mean? And Joel uses many phrases that initially I didn't really understand. And he tells us that the Infinite Way isn't something to be understood intellectually. It's something to be experienced. So what I'm sharing with you today really is to help and encourage you to experience the truth for yourself. So consider this, if you will. When we relax the body, we're probably won't be able to concentrate deeply enough to do it now, but it might be something that you'd like to do afterwards. So if, for example, I relax my hand, and I might feel the life force flowing through my hand when it's completely relaxed and aware of the consciousness, the energy that's flowing there. In exactly the same way, we can rest and relax in mind, in the mind that we are, and feel that light radiate, that pure consciousness radiating out through us, just as we feel the life force flowing through our hand. I find it personally easier to do this if I'm sitting in a quiet space or in nature or lying on my bed. It becomes easier for me to relax the body first and then to relax and rest in mind, the consciousness that I am, and let that radiate out through me and realize that it's living itself. And that's one of the wisdoms of the Infinite Way. Consciousness lives itself. You do not live it. I don't have to do anything. I can just rest and relax in it, and it functions. It does everything. So in this way, we surrender and become instruments for that self, the perfect self. And you can allow yourself just to be governed by it, that pure consciousness. And when we do that, when we rest and relax in our own consciousness, it purifies the mind and the body. And once the mind becomes permeated by that pure vibration, then it becomes the substance of the forms that we experience. There's only one mind, one consciousness. And when we allow it to flow through us, it then renews, restores, and regenerates our experience. I hope you'll take with you what I shared with you today and put it into practice, or at least try it. If there's no comments or any questions that anyone would like to share, then we'll end with another short meditation, and then I'll hand over to Arun. Okay, let's just be still again then for a moment. You can close your eyes if you'd like to. Thank you. If you closed your eyes, I invite you to open them now. Thank you. That was a pleasure sharing that with you. Okay, I'll hand over to you now, Arun.
So, hi all. I would like to speak about the absolute, because the absolute or the reality, when we get into, or the transcendental state of mind, when we are into that thing, we actually submerge into the absolute. Absolute in the sense, it's in Vedas it is saying as Brahman, but it is not a god, like the someone who is actually sitting on the top or whatever. It is not a god actually. It's like um, the submerged reality where we can actually see the world as it is. So for that thing, what I am taking is like Ishavasim Upanishad. This is one of the Upanishad that is the part of the Vedas. It's a small one, which is like 18 slokas. So I'm taking that Ishavasim Upanishad and trying to see what it is actually talking in that particular piece of Upanishad. Um, so the when we speak about the Brahman, uh, the one of the very important parts which is comes into my mind is like this. Uh, Yak chakshusham na kasyapi yenam chakshomshi kasyapi tadeva brahmatvam vidhi nedam ititam upasade. Is an Upanishad part. So what it is actually says, yet chakshusham na kasyapi. It's like yet chakshusha. Chakshush means eyes. Yet chakshusham na kasyapi. Uh, we can't see it with the eyes. Yet chakshusham na kasyapi. Yenam chakshomshi kasyapi. But if even if we can't see it through eyes, it is seeing through our eyes. Yachakshusham na kasyapi yenam chakshomshi kasyapi tadeva brahmatvam vidhi nedam ititam upasade. That is what we called as Brahman, or what we are worshipping here is not actually Brahman. So this is the one of the important thing when we are getting to the trying to understand the metaphysical level of Upanishad reality. This is something which we have to understand. Like, what is that it is actually speaking here? It's like for example, if we are watching a landscape through a window, so we can't say that the windows are watching the landscape. What we actually say is that the person who is sitting inside the window or inside the room watching the landscape through the window. The similar way, uh, when the eyes are watching a landscape, the eyes are actually not watching. The thing which is sitting inside the eye, which is watching the landscape through eyes. So that is the Brahman, which has no quality, which has no shape or nothing. It's just pure bliss. uh, so to come into that, the five senses, whatever is the product which we call the mind, is actually the product of whatever the data which we fed into our body through our five senses. That is the mind actually. So the mind, when the mind is actually correct, we can actually submerge into the absolute reality, which is called the Brahman or the absolute, that is watching through us, even though that is not me. Means it's a false I is there and there is a real I also there. The false I is the identification which is being gained through mind, but it is not the real I. There is the I which has no identification required, but it is the identification itself. So this thing is the Brahman. So now let's go to the Ishavasim Upanishad. So the Ishavasim Upanishad start in the parts which saying Om Ishavasim Idam Sarvam Yat Kinja Jagatyam Jagat. So that is how it starts. Um, this is the first stanza. Tena tektena sunchida ma grida kattushvanam. So what does it means? Uh, Om Ishavasim Idam Sarvam. This is all created by that. So this is all belong to Lord. So don't try to cover Lord's property. Just enjoy. Just enjoy whatever the Lord is created. Don't try to cover. The moment we say this is mine, then that particular moment also creates something for other. If I say this is mine, the moment what happens is that the moment I say this is mine, there is already created something for the other. So there is no duality, like there is no two. So what is the first part says, Ishavasim idam sarvam. This all created by the Lord. It's all belong to Lord. So when they say it's created by Lord, don't get into an understanding that something is created, something for us. No, this is Lord. Whatever we are seeing is that we are inside Lord, or we are Lord itself. So all those things are belongs to Lord, and enjoy that. Don't try to cover it. The moment you cover it, you create problem, because the mind start to act. The moment you say this is mine, the problem starts, because it comes into the duality. So that is the first part. Om Ishavasim Idam Saram. Just enjoy Lord's property. Don't try to cover. If you try to cover it, it makes problems for you. So then then the next parts are Karvanna Veka Karmani Jivakshatam Sama, which means that by understanding this truth, let's hope for to live 100 years. Okay, it's not like we are just leaving everything and we don't want to live. Let's hope for let's pray to live for 100 years. That is the average human span which the Upanishads are saying. Let's pray to live for approximately 100 years by understanding this truth. So the third one, Asurya nama te loga andhena tamasa vrda tamste pratya vijanti ekeya chatmano jana. So this part is very important to understand. When we say we are understanding that all these things are not mine, it belongs to Lord. When we do in that way, what happens? Sometimes we get into an identification that we are realized. If we get into that kind of thought, what happens? We are into dark zone. We are actually not realizing. If you think that you are realized, then you are actually not realized. So this is the third part says Asurya namate loga andena tamasavrdha. If you think in that way, you will get an identification that you will fall into the dark world, that is asura means the demonic world. That is what they say. We fall into the dark zone, which is like we are actually not seeing the reality. We are into a dark zone. Manaso. So anecha dekam manaso jevio naina deva aptavan pushamat tathavato nyanya tedi tishtastimno madrashva dadati. This one, the absolute or the reality, that is single, and that is faster than mind. It can't be achieved through senses, but it will achieve senses. So based on that, the the existence is been created, and all the existence is the part of that particular thing. So the then it continues in this way: tade jadi tannai jadi tadure tadantike tadandarasya sarvasya tadu sarvasyasya bhagyasya, which means that tade jadi tan annai jadi. It is like tade jadi, it is moving. Tannai jadi, it is not moving. It is moving, at the same time it is not moving. Tad dure tandantike, it is far. We are staying a very distance from them. From that, tad dure, it is so far from us. Tad antarige, which means that it is inside also. It is in a very, it is a very distant. It is staying so far from us, even though it is staying so inside on us. Tadu sarvasyasya bhahyata, it is outside also, it is inside also. So this is the thing we have to understand, that the duality, the dialectic of this particular parts is what we have to understand. It's a key basically. It's like it's staying so far, even though it's staying inside. It is outside and it is inside. It is dual, but it is single. So that is the dialectic. That is the key which we have to understand. So once you see this, once you understand, see this, the sixth part comes. Yetu sarvani bhutani atmanye vanu pashyati sarva bhuteshu chatmanam tadona vichukupsade. Whoever seeing, it is inside me and it is in every being. Like we are not separate from the existence. We don't have any special capability. Human beings are not special. Whoever is seeing me, also the part of the world or the reality, he can't hate anything else. It is like pure love will happen. Whoever seeing that, the Heather was speaking about the Muji. He was the disciple of Papaji. Papaji was the disciple of Ramana Maharshi. So when we go near to Ramana Maharshi's ashram or the near to Muji, the vibration which happens from them is like so intense, and that could actually transcend many things from us. So such kind of vibration starts to radiate from a living being when he is understand this. Yadu sarvani bhutani almanne vanupachyati. So whoever seeing everything is not it is not duality, like this is that, this is me, this is that, this is me. If the moment you can actually stop distinguish this thing, the moment you become the Lord and you become the absolute reality or the self itself. So he can't actually hate anything apart from him. It is not possible. When you see the other also as you, when you realize the other also as you can't hate that the other, because there is no other reality existing. Yasmin sarvani bhutani atmaiva vinjanate tatra ko mohaka shoka ekatvam anupashyati. So when this is the seventh part, yasmin sarvani bhutani atmaiva vinjanate tatra ko mohaka shoka ekatvam anupashyati. If you are rest in peace, or you are the absolute, when you are the absolute, or you are experiencing the unitiveness, then how can you get the so-called problems? How can you get something, some problems in your life, because the whatever happening to you, you are seeing it is actually has to happen, so you are detached. So in that kind of person, how the problems can happen, like the problems are really not existing. सपद्यगा चक्रमया व्रण मस्ताविरम शुद्ध पाप विधम कवर्मनिषि परिफु स्वयंभू यथार्थोत्थान वृद्धश्चस्तुभ्ये समाव्य. So this particular thing, it has no body, it has no shape, it has nothing. So that is what we have to understand. This has nothing. I mean, even though it has everything. So understand this particular point very carefully, like it has everything, but it has nothing. Antam tama pravishyanti ye vidyam upasate tado puya ivate tamo ya vidyayam datha. So there is two kind of knowledge which Upanishad is coming up here, that is avidya and vidya. So there is avidya means the false knowledge and vidya means the right knowledge. Whoever has the false knowledge, they will end up in false place. Whoever has the right knowledge, they will end up in right place. So the Upanishad is saying, whoever worshipping the false knowledge, they are into the darkness. So we can say in this way, whoever don't know what is Brahman is, they are into darkness. And whoever think that they already knows Brahman, they are into double darkness than that of the people who are into darkness. Because the moment you are sure about something, you can't move from that. So you are into double darkness. And people who don't know about that, we can tell something about that to that people. But if you think you know that, then we can't do anything about that. So here this part is saying, whoever following the false knowledge, they are into darkness, and whoever following the real knowledge, they are into double darkness. So this has to be understood very carefully. So anya deva hur vidya anya da hurva vidya iti sushruma dhirana ye nasta chakshire. So we actually heard, the Upanishads are saying, we actually heard he who are saying this parts, he is saying, we heard, this is not like we are saying, we heard from the wise person, this is how it's behave. Whoever following the, because they are become so submerged, they can't even say I. So and we are coming to the 11th parts. Okay, in the 11th part, which is saying vidyam cha yat dadostam saha avidya mrutyam tirtva vidya mrudamaschate. He who knows this, like we should win the false knowledge with the true knowledge, and with the true knowledge we should win over the death, which means that once you get into the absolute, you get the taste of the immortality. So Jesus says it's in paradise. That is the paradise he is referring to. It's in Bible, because Jesus was speaking that thing because Jesus came to India some part of his life. So he understood that thing from India. And the paradise, or the once you get the taste of the immortality, you can, to get the taste of the immortality, you have to win over the false knowledge with the knowledge to get the immortality. Antham tama pravisyanti ye sambhudi mupasade tado puya ivate tamo ya usamprudharadha. We so understand this point very clearly. He who worship the false knowledge will be fall into the darkness. And he who thinks he knows the true knowledge will fall into double darkness of that. So this is, it is not like this. This is about critical thinking. It's about viveka. It's about understanding what is real and what is unreal. Okay. So Sambrudhi cha vinyasam cha yastato doyom saha vinashena mrityum tirtha sambrudha mupadeshyade. When we say the absolute, it is not about renouncing the world. He who understands this correctly will never renounce the world, and he will actually do the false knowledge also and the real knowledge also, with understanding what is the real knowledge, what is the false knowledge. And such kind of person will actually get the immortality. Hiranmyena patrena satya swapihitam muham tattvam pushanna pravona satya dharmaya drishte. This truth is hidden inside the golden plate. And let the sun open this cover and show the real truth to us. Pushanne karme yama surya prajapate vyuharismin samuha teja yatte rupa kalyana tamam tatte pasyami yo savasya purusha sohastami. Dear son, show me the truth. Show me the truth. Let me see the me. Let me see the truth. And that truth is not other than that of me. The truth is me itself. Because we are the part of that. We are that itself. We are the God itself. It's not like we are different from the God. The moment we understand the immortality, we understand that we ourselves is the God. Vayu nilam rumam ardheyam pasmandam shariram om krados marak krudam smara krados marak krudam smara. I'm going to die. My force, my prana means which is helping us to stay inside this body. Let the prana get merged into the real, or get merged into the absolute when I die. Akne naya subhathaya raya asman vishwani deva vayunani vidwan yuyodhya smrada hurana meno piyushmam teda nama uktim videma. Hey, my dear Lord Agni, please help me to understand this truth, because you are actually ignite everything. You are actually eat everything. The Lord Agni. So this is the 18 verses of the Ishavasim Upanishad. Do you have any questions regarding this? Like,
no, I'm just thinking about what you've just shared. I don't really have any questions about it. No, it's so helpful to contemplate spiritual truth, and sometimes you hear something and it strikes you in a new way. So I appreciate all that you've shared. Thank you.
so do you want to say something?
No. Should we close the workshop now? We both said everything that we wanted to say.